I do because it appears to me to be the easier way. To convey the approach I am striving for, as best I can, to whoever is willing to listen, is plain and simple, although it has already demanded a lot from me. A real relationship between man and horse is for Klaus Ferdinand Hempfling something which expresses itself physically, but is also intellectual and spiritual to the utmost, because unseen truths become daily experienced realities through a spiritualized relationship with horses. A gelding is only about 1.45 meters, according to the yardstick. What makes him seem large and imposing is his unbending will. Unbending, at least, when mechanical attempts are made to tame, manipulate and steer him. His previous owners learned this the hard way. Klaus Ferdinand Hempfling rides this once very difficult gelding almost every day, without any restraints, in this rough countryside among his herd of free-running horses. Over the years, an unprepossessing, introverted horse became the self-confident, proud leader of the herd. For man and horse can learn from each other, grow, become one with each other. I don't want to teach people to put themselves in danger without a bridle or reins, Klaus says, but I have approached horses in my own special way. And this could be an opportunity to reflect on my own experience and perhaps consider what horses can communicate to us in their own way and with their own language. Far away from the usual riding centres, Klaus founded his own school. It begins with and revolves around body language, behind which a whole internal and external world is hidden. Comprehend the hidden, which is all too well camouflaged by the self-evident, it is necessary to break new ground. Klaus Ferdinand Hempfling had to break new ground. The purpose and content of this film is to show another way through this newfound land. Every rider knows what it means to keep control over a horse in the middle of a galloping herd, even with a bridle and reins. But even at such critical moments, without any apparent signal, János seems to sense his rider's thoughts and carry them out. when he carries this rider, but only this one, something new, something unique happens. Two bodies unite and speak to each other in their own way.
In dem Augenblick, in dem ich mit einem Pferd zusammen bin, habe ich das große Glück, dass ich sozusagen...
Being together with a horse puts me in the very fortunate position of always having a living mirror at my side.
In jedem Augenblick Innerlichkeit und Äußerlichkeit des Menschen...
Body language conveys to the horse at all times the mental and outward attitude of a person. In other words, the complete person. Every horse reflects the characteristics of a person in his own way.
Bezogen auf den Menschen, mit dem das Tier, in diesem Falle ganz speziell das Pferd, zusammen ist.
Simplifications and moralizing are out of place and don't help anyone. The owners of the horses shown here have long since begun to look for alternatives. What helps to begin with is to view things soberly the way they are. These pictures are not the rule, but they are also not so very exceptional. The statistics for accidents involving horses show that they are at the top of the list of dangerous things to do. Putting aside any question of bad intentions, we still cannot close our eyes to one fact when we look at the relationship between man and horse. Hasn't the horse existed, and doesn't it too often exist, as an object that is exploited in one way or another?
Also es ist im Grunde jeden Tag ein neuer Machtkampf.
Every day it's a new fight to see who's boss. If he really pushes things to the limit, then he wins. I have to admit that, frankly, I can't fight him directly. I have to ignore his stubbornness and gymnastics and try to ride through it all and always start from the beginning. Because if he begins to fight and really uses all his strength, I've lost.
Seine Kraft ausspielt, dann habe ich verloren.
Don't these few pictures show that with people and horses, two basically foreign worlds confront one another? One appears to have nothing in common with the other. If we don't want to force them together, what other alternative is there? Could it be that an important link is often missing, without which an understanding appears to be impossible, even with goodwill, with the best of intentions? The possibility of finding common ground between man and horse at a deeper level requires dealing with clear, recognizable realities. Equally important, perhaps more so, according to Klaus Ferdinand Hempfling, are the interrelations which are often hidden from people. Now the phrase body language becomes magic. It is really extremely difficult for me to interpret the horse's reaction as a mirror of myself correctly.
Yes, this is altogether the most difficult thing in being with horses, or at least one of the most difficult, interpreting reactions properly. For instance, I often don't know if laid-back ears mean fear, or mean uncertainty, or mean aggressiveness, or too many demands. Laid-back ears in relation to me are of course a signal for me. But what do they mean? This is why we must recognize external signals and learn to understand their sensitivities.
Was will es bedeuten?
Hun wil op te leggen.
To begin with, let's take a look at a more or less normal case in point. At a presentation in Holland, Klaus was shown a very nervous Arab mare, which in spite of great efforts made by the owner, would hardly let herself be handled, let alone touched by anything like a blanket. But with Klaus, things seem to happen like lightning. Without hesitation, the horse is letting itself be touched by this stranger and is reacting to his terse instructions as if it had been trained a long time. What does Klaus mean when he says, "What I do absolutely without any intentions. I don't make any demands on the horse, only on myself. I must have a feeling for the horse, feel a total togetherness." After a few minutes, the horse is finally trotting behind the object of its fears, as if it were hypnotized. The contact with the saddle blanket makes the mare start, but she then tolerates this foreign object all over her body. The horse is totally transformed, the owner says.
Wichtig ist jetzt, wenn ich mit dem Pferd hier rumspiele und solche Sachen mache, dass ich überhaupt keine Angst habe.
After just 15 minutes, the horse is led by the horseman on a slack rope, as if they had grown up together. The horse reacts to the slightest movement. It doesn't miss the slightest body signal. Instant harmony and oneness. Just add water and stir? No, absolutely not. The art of his natural speech, as Klaus calls it, is not simply the superficial training of a few signals learned by heart. To learn the secret, it is necessary to look much deeper, to get behind the outer shell in order to learn to sense the real inner rhythm of the horse.
Du hast vorher was gesagt über das Lernen.
You said something before about learning, that you can learn to feel the horse, to know what the horse wants to say. But is this really possible for people?
Es ist so, dass
Fact is that children are much more intuitive, much more open in their approach to life, people, animals, and horses. A child is better able to sense how the horse feels, to interpret laid-back ears, for example, than an adult. What does this mean? It means that we're really able to do it. We had the ability as children, and we've lost it. What I'm trying to say is that body language, as I understand it, isn't merely something you can learn. You can learn it to a degree, but mostly to arrive at an understanding, at free play, you have to unlearn something.
in dem Sinne, wie ich das verstehe, nicht etwas ist, was man nur lernen kann. Einen Teil kann man lernen, aber den Großteil, um dahin zu kommen, zu einer Verständigung, zu einem freien Spiel mit dem Pferd, bedeutet etwas verlernen.
Christine is playing ball. She forgets herself, life, and her horse. And that is when the horse becomes approachable in a way she never experienced before. Play is the most natural, most human way to find one's inner being, to find liberation, if only temporarily. One's body expresses itself freely. It is itself, relaxed, spontaneous, childlike, and naive. Learning to master the body's language takes time, but one can get a quick impression of the effectiveness of body language simply by playing. When we play, one's most basic inner being prevails at once over the more outer form of existence. Playing is here and now. Klaus uses the natural power of play in many variations in his courses. So after you have experienced everything and learned everything, then forget it. Play and just be. For the way you have to go begins with and should be followed in play. Let's observe Klaus's basic approach in more detail, using his horse Kreska as an example. Kreska is a 3-year-old untrained thoroughbred mare, which Klaus saved from brutal conditions a few days before. The horse was able to recover well in his peaceful herd in his absence. She still behaves shyly and rejects contact with anyone. So Klaus used a lead horse to get her away from the herd and into the riding area. He is using a seminar as an opportunity to reach out to his horse more intensively for the first time. At the very beginning, something surprising happens. Klaus throws the rope to see how the horse will react. It doesn't respond at all. At first, surprised by this lack of reaction, Klaus decides to proceed differently than planned. Acting as if he was totally disinterested, he gives the horse the opportunity to follow him. From now on, his body consistently signals the greatest possible normality, absolute calmness and naturalness. Klaus now approaches the horse resolutely in the following way. He stretches out his right hand so that the horse reacts by drawing back. Now there is already a clear gesture of complete acceptance of the man. Klaus calmly follows the horse until it finally remains standing of its own accord. Kreska turns to him while he, seemingly unmoved by all this, begins to touch the horse all over its whole body. Only a few seconds have gone by, but almost everything, as Klaus would say, has already happened. I am the way I am, and the horse is also the way it is. And we very quickly find this togetherness. In order to let horses feel completely free to move, Klaus often begins by taking off their halter. It is already clear that the horse responds to every step the man takes. Klaus overcomes the horse's shyness almost completely very early in their meeting by touching the sensitive parts of its underbelly. Calmly and obviously enjoying it, the horse stays with him. Now something extremely important happens. Klaus always waits for a natural opportunity to carry out the intentions he had from the beginning, namely to create a distance between himself and the horse. Wallowing offers a good opportunity. Kreska wants to turn back to the man again, but he creates a clearly defined space around himself. This is a very decisive moment. Everything done must signal total relaxation and calm with no hint of aggressiveness. Otherwise, the horse will easily panic and either flee or fight. A lot would be ruined. Like a higher-ranking horse, the person takes exactly the same position the horse had before. Klaus always gives the horse the opportunity to leave by turning to its croup. Here we can clearly see how one should always take one's cue from the horse's reactions, but without ever becoming inconsistent, even for a moment. Kreska suddenly turns to Klaus, who can only do one thing, draw back, but without letting the horse come to him. He now waits for the right moment to approach the horse. These beginnings develop naturally into the starting point for lunging. Now Klaus steps towards the horse's head so that it turns to him and he can approach the standing horse like a sovereign leader of the herd. What I definitely want to convey to the horse in these first moments in clear body language is that I do not demand anything from him. He can stand still while I touch him or lift his hoof, but he doesn't have to. He stays with me because there's no reason to run away. Finally, Kreska also follows the man in a large area, as if she has already belonged to him a long time. There is no trace of shyness anymore after about 20 minutes. Playfulness, fun and trust can be seen in Kreska's body language. The horse has found his equal. It is the most normal thing in the world for Kreska to follow this person, who she now fully trusts, to the riding area. It is also worth watching the end of this sequence, because the trust in this peaceful person, once won, remains unchanged when the saddle blanket is placed on the horse for the first time. You can clearly see that Klaus does not appear to pay the slightest attention to this procedure, although he is at all times totally concentrated on the horse. Yes, the normality, the security communicated by his internal and external physical presence seem to carry over directly to the horse. The unseen finds a bridge. The young horse doesn't move a muscle and stands still next to her new friend, even when the saddle blanket is waved forcefully over her. You can clearly see just how calm and relaxed the person's body must be, so that the horse doesn't have the least doubt about the harmlessness of the procedure. Without any fear, and with only a touch of curiosity, Kreska looks at this unknown thing on her back. The friendship has not been weakened. The horse seeks the man. Not every horse reacts like Kreska. On the contrary, every horse reacts differently, Klaus later tells course participants. But the procedure remains the same, as does the result. Only the time is determined by the horse. Even when the saddle belt is buckled, the horse only kicks a little with its hind legs. It remains standing, untied in one place. Klaus remains seated a long time and explains to his audience what has just happened. Some questions have been answered by the events themselves, but many new ones now become important. Many of these can often only be grasped and answered after a long period of study. During the whole time, Kreska never leaves Klaus's side.
Körpersprache am Anfang bedeutet, etwas wegzulassen. Warum ist das so? Ganz einfach. Du willst, dass
Body language at the beginning means discarding something. Why? Very easy. You want your horse to come to you and trust you and not be frightened. He can only do this if there's nothing artificial about you, and he feels there's no hindrance, and you're natural and at ease within yourself.
Die größte Selbstverständlichkeit, die größte Natürlichkeit und die einfachste Form sozusagen des Daseins erlebt. Es ist ein langer Weg, den man sich Stück für Stück erarbeiten muss, den man erproben muss und den man erfahren muss.
It's a long way to go, and you have to work at it, piece by piece, testing and experiencing. And the first step is to discard mental unease. I can't change completely from one day to the next, or go to my horse with a totally different attitude. That's impossible. But I can begin to change and abandon certain behavior that I've learned, that people have taught me, and that maybe has nothing to do with my naturalness or natural personality.
Im eigentlichen Wesen ganz wenig, vielleicht sogar gar nichts zu tun haben, dass ich diese Verhaltensweisen ablege und reduziere. Ja.
When we play, usual patterns of behavior recede automatically. The next step must be to reduce the many, usually unconscious body signals and the body's learned external patterns of behavior. These mechanisms are often based on the deliberate or unconscious use of external instruments of power. Franz must take this first step. His gelding is hectic and nervous, reacts to everything except his owner. Franz should do as little as possible with his body, but what he does should be done as precisely as possible. He should only use minimal gestures to lay a natural claim to a certain space for himself. Other than this, he should let the horse be a horse and not pay it any attention. The result is only surprising for a beginner. The horse reacts logically. It follows the now calm and strong being calmly and trustingly.
Genau. Schau mal, so schön schwer. Guck mal, ja, das interessiert ihn ja schon ein Stück.
For the horse, that's a bit more interesting. Okay, now, keep on, straight ahead. Carry on, that's fine. At this moment, you mustn't be interested in the horse at all, because that's exactly what he finds exciting. If the horse happens to be standing there, just carry on past him. Right. That's the way. Exactly. Now there's already a relationship between you. Okay, stand still. Don't look the horse straight in the eye. Let your shoulders hang. Snap your fingers a bit.
Without demanding anything, Franz achieved something. Without being authoritarian, he gained respect. Without trying to force calm, he became an example of calmness. Play was followed by the principle of reduction.
So geht das. Wunderbar. Riesenapplaus für beide.
Das Pferd wird jetzt auf diese beiden Teile meiner Körpersprache, auf den äußeren wie auf den inneren,
The horse will always react to both elements of my body language, the external and the internal, the unconscious, unseen. He'll react according to my signals. In this case, he'll follow me, either happy to do so, or maybe unwillingly or aggressively. And I can learn certain things from this reaction. First of all, is my external communication clear and consistent, or could I have been looking the other way and doing other things? Did my arm say come and my body say go? The horse's reaction first of all tells me if my external signals were correct. It also tells me something about my inner state. The external signals and the inner state can contradict each other. I can give two completely different signals, and when in doubt, the horse will always respond to the inner one.
Zustand können kontrovers laufen, können vollkommen unterschiedliche Signale dem Pferd geben und das Pferd wird im Zweifelsfalle immer dem inneren Signal folgen.
A remarkable case has been captured with a camera here. Klaus is sitting on his horse Janosch without a bridle or reins, and the horse is shying away from a narrow crossing. Viewed physically, the rider is helplessly dependent on his horse. Nonetheless, even in this critical situation, Klaus remains the leader, the guide. How is this possible? First, we can see that no emotion is openly expressed. The horse would immediately recognize the inner weakness and the external helplessness of the man, and it would go its own way. It would bolt. Klaus does not avoid the cause for fear, at least as long as it isn't too extreme. An inner determination, conveyed to the horse in the form of clear instructions, communicated by just a few body signals, keeps the horse in the apparently dangerous area. Only the pressed hips and the body bent forward keep János where he is or allow him to draw back. After the horse and rider have relaxed, Klaus quietly waits in front of the crossing without giving any further signals. He waits until János has found courage and confidence in himself, so that he can take the first step into the apparent danger on his own. Without a fight, the man has won. He has won the deepening trust of the horse. Reduction is followed by another important step. One's body language should support the horse by conveying full presence and determination. Let's observe Moni taking this step. Her Haflinger gelding already trusts her a lot, but because of earlier mistreatment, he still shies away from the crop. In this presentation, Moni, together with Klaus, wants to gently break through this barrier for the horse's own good. Moni should learn how to maintain control over the situation, how to lead without using physical force. One must become aware of his or her inner strength and work to increase it. Once again, the first step is play. The crop becomes a casually used utensil for Moni and the horse. This is an important preparation for the concentrated steps that follow. Once the horse has calmed down, Moni must, with careful guidance, bring an almost meditative concentration into focus.
So, das ist mal hier der Bodengang, wenn jetzt im Hintergrund, sie werden so hängen sollten. Hinten bleiben, weil wieder nicht so okay. Feines Verflogen, Mund, sprechen, hier versetzen, hier und zu, gut, Richtung Kuppe, gutes Pferd, hier wieder und zu. Hier richtig, in die andere Seite, lassen es in der Ecke stehen, mal bei der Kuppe. Gutes Pferd, fein. Fein, so, geh ein bisschen weiter nach hinten. Geh ein bisschen weiter nach hinten, geh nach da, ich bin in der Ecke, geh nach da, geh nach da. Ja, mach weiter, gut. So.
Without approaching the horse too quickly, without using pressure, Moni is learning to follow up with body language.
Wenn du es gelernt hast, dir über ganz bestimmte
When you've
Verhaltensweisen,
learned to see certain patterns of your behavior more clearly with the help of the horse, when you've gained clarity, then you of course need new means of expression which signal your new inner state, your new attitude to the horse. The change inside you requires a trained body, so that softness, free play, everything coming from inside you is expressed softly and as free play. This means that you of course need an at least partly schooled, trained, soft, elastic body, which can very precisely convey the body signals coming from within to the horse.
weichen, beweglichen Körper, der sehr genau die Körpersignale, so wie sie jetzt aus dem Inneren kommen, den Pferden signalisieren kann.
For two beings to be able to unite in the action of riding, every movement of the horse must be taken over, so to speak, by the human body. The rider's abdomen acts here as a soft, gentle buffer. The hardly notice the rider. Only then, in his flowing movement together, can the rider lead and guide the horse, and give it composure by using precise body language. In order to meet these great demands, Klaus developed his own system of body movement. It is important for him that the human body at all times, consciously or unconsciously, moves as a whole. Everything must be soft and elastic, and the smallest movement must be part of this whole. This is the only way for the rider to convincingly signal emotions, feelings, and internal life to the horse. Out of the flowing movement and the sense of the whole, the body almost automatically becomes a clear, upright and energetic presence, which serves unquestionably as a model for the horse. Once again, slow-motion studies of work with horses demonstrate this inner concentration expresses itself in movement through an exactly balanced straight posture. The movements are parallel. Horse and rider dance with each other. Such exact body signals have an immediate effect on the posture of the horse, make it expressive, concentrated, and put it in a collected state. In this duet, the horse imitates the rider, pushes its hind quarters far under its body, simply because of the body language of the rider. Here, a clear tilting of the pelvis. Even difficult exercises which encourage the horse's balance and concentration, such as the so-called shoulder-in, can be triggered by tiny signals. Without any outward influence, the horse learns to trust and feel secure. Beautifully poised, the horse floats freely and unhindered in a collected state. A person has to put him or herself in a state of clarity and decisiveness, internally and externally, and has to convey this to the horse so that it can ultimately develop freely and independently. A horse prepared this way, when turned inward to go in a complete circle, will even gallop in an even tighter spiral. The horse is performing one of the most difficult exercises with playful ease. The rider's unambiguous body signals, here we can clearly see the shift in body weight, leads the horse to change directions correctly in the so-called turned inward position without the use of reins. The rider sits in a precise position on the unsaddled horse's back, always consciously trying to passively absorb the horse's movement.
Und jetzt passiert etwas sehr Schönes. Dadurch, dass ich das allmählich ordne,
And now something very beautiful will happen. Because I slowly sort things out, I use the horse's reactions step by step to develop a relationship to the horse, to my inner self, to my body, and to my body language, which is now increasingly acting as a bridge. That means that these three things interact more and more. I become more conscious of my inner self. Through these two supports, getting to know my body and getting to know how to handle my body, I can transport that which comes from inside me over this bridge to the inner self of the horse.
Innerlichkeit des Pferdes.
It'll now approach me differently, because it's now trusting, because communication is now possible from one inner being to another.
Innerlichkeit.
These three things act together as a unity: inner state, bridge, inner state.
Innerlichkeit.
Body language connects me to my horse, and the signals and existence melt together.
Sozusagen mit meinem Pferd und die Signale und das Dasein wird zu einem Ganzen zusammen verschmelzen.
These pictures are meant to demonstrate that the aim of leading horses without physical force, through inner strength, through spiritual and physical presence, can really and truly be achieved. Klaus is working here with his stallion Junker in what he calls stallion training. Junker is, according to Klaus, one of the most untamable stallions with the strongest stallion instincts he knows. With only a rope hanging loosely from its neck, the stallion is led very close to a mare in heat. I don't want to take away the slightest bit of the horse's wildness, not one spark of his power and personality, Klaus says. Just the opposite, I want to preserve and encourage it in such a way as to gain a certain control for the horse's own good, so that his freedom is as unrestricted as possible. The excited stallion learns to step back again and again without any physical influence by the man. The enormous power Klaus has over this horse can only be fully appreciated by riders who have experience with stallions which are high-ranking in the herd. The stallion has given me the control over him. I could never take it. He has given it to me because he has learned that I only use it in his own interests. The stallion training finishes today in the riding area. The pair is approaching the mare in heat with nothing but a simple halter. If the horse doesn't react to my thigh and weight shift signals, Klaus says, or to the clear signals of my body language, I would be lost, even with the most severe bit. With the bridle hanging loosely, the stallion is standing near the mare. He calmly lets himself be turned away and ridden. How much and how subtly horses can be helped by this kind of relationship is illustrated by the example of this 14-year-old stallion. What we already know should help us to have a deeper understanding of how things happen. The owner of a stud farm invited Klaus to come with a group of pupils from a school. They were shown an extremely shy stallion which wouldn't let himself be touched or led. Jörg, a pupil, can't calm down this hectic horse. It shies away, moving in a constant circle. To make things worse, it's lame. Just like every other one, this case is special. Klaus must approach the lame horse without making it continue to move. So first he is keeping it motionless in a corner of the riding area with only the help of his body language. If he were to come nearer to the horse right away, he would risk being overrun by it. He therefore has to convince the horse of his strength, but also of his harmlessness. It takes a few minutes before the horse trusts Klaus enough that he can get closer. But the stallion's enormous tension becomes evident as soon as Klaus leaves the corner in the way the horse takes off. The work has just begun for Klaus. He wants to win the stallion's entire confidence. Everything that creates trust must be used in such meetings. And so Klaus once again directs the stallion into the corner where he has already experienced trust and closeness. But his goal is to be able to stop him at any point in the riding area and touch him. A lot has been achieved, but Klaus still can't draw back very far if he wants to keep the stallion calmly in the corner. The next step will be to use body language the next time he leaves the corner, and so to slow him down and guide him. Klaus therefore walks in a small curve to the left, just far enough so that he can keep the horse walking at a slow pace and can accompany it. Now it is only a question of time, and the stallion will determine how things continue.
Das, was dann zählt, zum Schluss, ist dann nicht mehr das Ergebnis unbedingt beim Pferd. Ich will dann ja nicht mehr vom Pferd, dass es piaffiert, dass es das macht. Sondern das, was ich möchte vom Pferd, ist, dass ich es verstehe.
What I want from a horse is that I understand it, that it understands me, and that we can create something in common and take the same path together. And everything I finally get from the horse is simply a gift. It's a horse, because of the sensitivity it has, and even the most tortured and beaten horse is still very, very sensitive, can, through its sensitivity, use the bridge in the other direction and give something back to me. Body language isn't a one-way street where only I send something. Body language means that two beings meet on and because of this bridge. What I get from the horse is an immense offering. Everything I have and experience is like a present. I simply open doors, and when the horse then comes through such an open door, then many things come to me. To sense the inner being of the horse and feel it is a wonderful gift.
It was one of the most subtle and deeply moving moments that I have ever been allowed to experience with horses. The way the horse opened up to me was so full, so spontaneous, so wide and complete. Because what people give to a horse is returned 1,000 times over. The way I try to be together with horses is a constant self-denial, always holding back. This makes it a school of life in which traces of an ancient world shine through. if we follow eternity back to the edge of non-existence, we can find a gate which is nothing more than the first trace of space and time. This is the transition point where nothingness already contains the endless and eternal creation of the visible. The first division can be found here. Two come from one here, light and darkness, heaven and earth, man and woman. Time creates rhythm, rhythm creates the path creates the number, and the number creates the speech. Speech creates the symbol, and the symbol finally reveals the whole world. And so all manifestations are nothing more than the symbolic expression of another unseen reality of spirit, soul, and emotion.